Would you like some inspiration? We've got it in waves, and we'd like to share some with you. So come find us where the river meets the sea, where the innocent meets the wild, where the mountains sing songs that break open the skies. Come look for us where the world above spills into the one below, where life is as many things as you want it to be. We are a village. We are a city. We are an island. Oh, many. We are the dream that inspires your moments. We are Cinnamon Hotels and Resorts, Sri Lanka and Maldives. And we are waiting for you. Come, be inspired. Would you like some inspiration? We've got it in waves, and we'd like to share some with you. So come find us where the river meets the sea, where the innocent meets the wild, where the mountains sing songs that break open the skies. Come look for us where the world above spills into the one below, where life is as many things as you want it to be. We are a village. We are a city. We are an island, or many. We are the dream that inspires your moments. We are cinnamon hotels and resorts, Sri Lanka and Maldives. And we are waiting for you. Come, be inspired.
The University of Kaelnia is one of the top state sector universities in Sri Lanka. The University of Kaelnia encompasses 7 faculties and 2 affiliated institutes. The Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies is serving the country by providing a proper space for undergraduates and professionals to develop their talents by identifying the real need locally and internationally. The faculty is currently moving towards an e-learning environment and to a research culture, and it offers honors degrees in the domain of commerce, accountancy, marketing, finance, human resource management, entrepreneurship, and business technology. The International Conference on Business and Information, which is organized by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, is held with the objective to provide a platform to present a paper in a supportive and non-confrontational environment to a group of senior academics and peers. This platform will also give an opportunity to discuss the theoretical and methodological challenges faced in their studies with senior and specialized academics in their respective field. Icbi 2010 Researching Realities of Management Phenomenon. Icbi 2011 Steering Excellence of Business Knowledge. Icbi 2012 Challenges and Opportunities in the 21st Century. Icbi 2013 Developing Business for Sustainable Growth, Research Innovation and Practice. Icbi 2014 Discovering New Knowledge to Cooperate with Competition Towards Business Success, Prizing the Present and Shaping the Future. Icbi 2015 Transcendence in Business, a Knowledge Immersed in Practice. Icbi 2016 Triumphing Business Excellence Through Knowledge Exploration. Icbi 2017 Exploring Disruptive Opportunities for Exponential Business Growth. Icbi 2018 Enriching Multidisciplinary Research Potential of International Collaboration Towards Sustainable Development. Icbi 2019 Business Transformation in Emerging Technology Landscape. Icbi 2020 Transforming Business Strategies for Economic Resilience. Icbi 2021 Reinventing Business Strategies in the Next Normal.
Icbi. Good morning, distinguished guests, delegates, panelists, and invitees who are joining us today. We would like to graciously welcome you all to the inauguration ceremony of the 13th International Conference on Business and Information, the annual conference organized by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of California. The theme of ICBI 2022 is Building Business Resilience to Climate Change in Frontier Markets. The goal of the conference is to bring researchers and practitioners to share cutting-edge developments in all spheres of management to a common platform.
ICBI provides a great platform for all researchers, academics, and practitioners to enhance their research knowledge throughout the day. Because of the prevailing situation in the country, the conference is running on a hybrid mode, including virtual presentations. We have the opportunity of hosting ICBI 2022 at the auditorium of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies. We are also live streaming via the university official Facebook page and also via the Zoom platform. Ladies and gentlemen, to formally commence the event, could you please rise for the university anthem?
Desakitu bersekurumaya suratina siat suwana ridu kirana bedadina sarasan dekini tulak kerehudajina kalaniya sarasavi mata kalaniya sarasavi mata.
Thank you. You may please be seated. Right at the outset, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome all of you with his official address, Please join us in welcoming the Conference Chair of Icbi 2022, Dr. M. Shamil.
Thank you, Sajid. Thank you, Vimansa. A very good morning to all. I thought of starting with a short note on what this theme meant for us when we came up with this. Human-induced climate change is an existential threat. However, there are polarizing views in the world when we say that climate change is human-induced and it's an existential threat. The paper by Mora and colleagues in 2013 highlighted the fact that climate departure is most likely to occur in the tropics and among the low-income countries earliest. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are highly susceptible to the threats of climate change. Whether our governments and businesses are ready or prepared is a question that needs answers. On a business as usual scenario, climate departure could occur early as this decade. Climate departure means where the today's temperature or current temperature is above the average temperature of many years in the past. In the case of Sri Lanka, whether there is adequate dialogue on climate change, its effect on our social business ecosystem is a question. In a country where social economic policies are shaped by political manifestos rather than national policies, there hasn't been adequate response to climate change. Moreover, the ongoing economic crisis is most likely to give second priority to issues like climate change. Thus, I see a critical role for businesses in countries like Sri Lanka. They should take the leadership on climate response to create the space required for dialogue and action towards climate response. With that brief overview, I would like to welcome the following dignitaries to Icbi 2022. The chief guest, the Vice Chancellor of University of California, Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva. The guest of honor, the Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Dr. Narada Fernando. The keynote speaker, Professor Sean Kidney, CEO and co-founder of Climate Bond Initiative UK. Professor Kapila Seneviratne, who will be joining us very soon. Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies and Director of Research Council of University of California. And we have the Deans of the Faculties of Science, Professor Sudat Kalingamuddali, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor Gunathilaka, Heads of Departments of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Professor Diluksha Bevardhana, Professor Dr. Ravi Disanayaka, Professor Ruwan Abesekara, Mr. Priyadarsan Piris, and the delegates from the University of Dhaka, Professor Dr. Suborna Barwa, Department of International Business, University of Dhaka, who is also the co-chair of the conference. Professor Shubodh Debanath, former head of the Department of International Business, University of Dhaka. I would also like to welcome some of our industry resource persons. Mr. Mohan Tantidige, Group Financial Officer, John Keel Holdings PLC. Mr. Richard Prena, Head of Sustainability Operations at Conspens PLC. Mr. Sanjeeva Chulakumara, Director and Board Member of INSE EcoCycle Lanka Limited. Mrs. Nilanthi Delgoda, Vice President, Union Bank Sri Lanka. Mr. Randiva Mallasuriya, Director and CEO of Ceylon Biscuits Limited. Authors, presenters, participants who have joined us online, all the professors and lecturers of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, the academic support and non-academic support staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very gracious welcome. Welcoming all our distinguished guests. Being one of the youngest faculties in the University of California, the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies has displayed a remarkable ability to undergo dynamic transformation and development in various aspects. The leadership of the Dean of the Faculty is behind all of this. Dr. P.N.D. Fernando is a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Finance, University of California, and at present, he is the Dean of the Faculty. Dr. Narada Fernando graduated with a Bachelor of Business Management in Accountancy special degree from the University of California in 1996. In 2005, he successfully completed his Master of Business Administration degree from the West Bengal University of Technology, India. And subsequently, he has obtained a Chinese government full scholarship to complete his Doctor of Philosophy degree at Central China Normal University, China. Over the years, Dr. Narada Fernando has served as the head of the Department of Finance, Director of the Career Guidance Unit, and Deputy Chairman of the Green Practices Committee at the University of California. Moreover, he works as a resource person to the University Staff Development Unit and Colombo Stock Exchange Investor Awareness Program. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now take the honor and privilege of inviting Dr. Narada Fernando, Dean of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, and the guest of honor for ICBI 2022.
Very good morning to all of you. Chief guest of the ICBI 2022, Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor, University of California, and our keynote speaker, Dr. Shane Kendi, and the Dean of the Faculty of Science, Senior Professor Sudat Kalingamudali, and Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor M.M. Gunatilaka, and heads of the department, and our first Dean of the Faculty, Professor Ananda Patapandige, and Dr. Subona from Dhaka University, and all the delegates, all the professors, ladies and gentlemen. So it is a great pleasure to address you all in this morning, because we are going with the ICBI for the 13th consecutive time, conducting research conference for 13 times consecutively is not an easy task. So this is the reflection of entire faculty, staff members, department heads, and as well as students. So their commitment for research. So that's why in management faculty, we are having 14 degree programs, undergraduate, and another postgraduate programs. So all programs, so we are considered research as a compulsory requirement. So that's how we want to increase the research capabilities and skills of each and everyone. So in today's context, when we are going with the theme that building business resilience to climate change in frontier market. So with that theme, what I felt, so we are in an economy, so we are in a world going with excessive consumption, over-consuming. So when it comes to climate change or the disasters, the reason behind that, so what I feel is overconsumption. So as the people in business management, so we were not able to forecast the requirements correctly. So again and again, we are going with overproduction due to misleading calculations and going with some excessive production. So which use the natural resources of this world. This is some sort of a cyclical process going from one side to another. giving some disadvantages to entire world. So in recent data, they have mentioned that in last year, so more than 20 billion pairs of shoes were produced globally, according to the given data. So nearly 300 million of them end up in landfilling across only in the United States. So there we can see the amount we are manufacturing, we are not consuming. So, but for each manufacturing, so we are using the natural resources which belongs to all of us. So that is not for the current generation, but it is entitled for even future. So even yesterday we discussed about SDG, that how we can keep our resources for the future. But all the time, as the business leaders, as the researchers in business management, it is our responsibility how we can mitigate this risk. So are we going with reporting all these climate changes in our balance sheet, our financial statements? And are we providing all the information which is requested by global organizations or maybe industries through our financial statements? I think that is one of the areas so we have to discuss. And not only that, so being in the financial area, so we have to develop new products which can absorb these climate changes. So that should be innovative, and that may be a green bond or green loan, or maybe some more things we have to invent. So with all these, so what we want to do, the amount of harm we are doing as humans, as well as business community to this earth, reduce it and control it. As Dr. Shamil mentioned, the global warming that is increasing. So 1 Celsius increase, and they are expecting by 2030 or 2040, it will increase by another 1.5 Celsius. So that's how it is increasing. And that's happened because of our acts. So today, I think in this conference, so we will discuss about the new innovations, how we can share the risk of climate change in our financial statement, how we can use this green bond or green loan to mitigate the risk involved with this climate change, and how we can go for a better business environment, resilience, dealing with the climate change. So in that sense, I wish all the very best to the researchers. Today we are going on discussions. And I want to thank, as the Dean of the Faculty, the chair of the conference, Dr. Shamil, and as well as the co-chairs of the conference, Dr. Subona from Dhaka University, and Dr. Saroja from Department of HRM, and as well as the secretary, Dr. Tishani, and all the members, those who dedicated to take this event to this level. It is, as I earlier mentioned, not an easy task working with people. So we face with a lot of challenges, and there may be more mistakes, not only in today, even in tomorrow. So bearing all these things, once again, I thank all the members of faculty and all the deans of other faculties, and especially Vice Chancellor, for supporting and bearing with us for this ICBI 2022. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for your thoughts shared with us today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, now we are moving on to a very special character who made it to the highly regarded Stanford University's top 2% scientists list. Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva earned her first degree in MBBS from the University of Colombo and went on to earn a master's in medical parasitology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in 1989. And a Doctor of Medicine degree specializing in medical parasitology from Colombo University's Postgraduate Institute of Medicine in 1994. She has lectured at the Faculty of Medicine, University of California since 1993 and has been the professor of parasitology there since 2003. Professor De Silva, a well-accomplished scholar, has over 60 publications in peer-reviewed scientific journals. The main focus of her research has been on soil-transmitted helminth infections, particularly their epidemiology, treatment, and control. Professor De Silva has served in various capacities in WHO working groups and committees over the years. She has been appointed to the prestigious position of Vice Chancellor, University of California, and has been spearheading the institution towards academic excellence since then. Ladies and gentlemen, my esteemed honor to invite Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor, University of California, and the chief guest of the day to address the gathering. Over to you, Madam.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, other deans, former dean, the founder dean of this faculty, colleagues from the University of Dhaka, professors and heads of department, conference participants. It's lovely to be back here again. I think this is the third ICBI conference that I'm attending, and I have learned from each one of those, from attending the inaugural sessions, listening to the keynote speakers. I have learned something new on every occasion, a message that I have registered and taken with me, perhaps into the university administration also, wherever possible. So I look forward to listening to our keynote speaker today regarding climate change as well. I think the timing of this conference is particularly apt, given that COP27 has been ongoing for the last week, and the world has been debating the issues that relate to climate change. This is something that we really all need. For many years, people were in denial that human activities was actually resulting in climate change. But I think now the consensus is that this is an undeniable fact, and that we all need to come to terms with what we have done to our environment and how that is going to affect humankind going into the future. The 1.5 degrees centigrade sort of cap on increasing global temperatures was agreed at the Paris Convention some years ago. I think we are generally agreed that we are not going to meet that 1.5 limit in 2030, but at least we've made some progress in slowing things down. And so by talking about it, by thinking, bringing experts from a lot of different fields to bear on this matter, there are many ways in which we can perhaps mitigate the risk that we are running. The risk is dire for island countries like the Maldives, for example, that runs the risk of being completely inundated and perhaps, becoming non-existent as nations. For us in Sri Lanka, and I think perhaps Bangladesh too, the risk is not so dire, but nevertheless, for a country like ours, where we depend on a largely agriculture-based rural economy, and I'm sure the same goes for Bangladesh too, the changes in the patterns of our monsoons we've had for centuries 2 monsoons every year, which arrive on a regular basis. Perhaps sometimes that goes out of sync with the El Nino phenomenon, but nevertheless, our farming communities have depended on that regularity with which the monsoons arrive for our Maha and our Yala cultivation seasons. When that doesn't happen and we experience extreme weather patterns with increasing periods of drought, interspersed by massive floods like what Pakistan experienced recently, then the repercussions, the impact on the economy can be really, really serious. So, and then from the agriculture sector to what people are able to consume to other parts of the economy, that impact will only grow. So I'm very glad that the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies has picked this theme of, building business resilience to climate change in frontier markets as the theme of today's conference. And I hope that there will be due consideration given to the impact that climate change will have on Sri Lanka's economy and how our business, the corporate world, can work towards mitigating that impact and dealing with the outcomes that are very likely to happen. So I thank and I congratulate the Faculty of Commerce and Management, Dr. Shamil and his team in the organizing committee for this conference for all the hard work that they have put in. I also would like to congratulate them on the SDG Summit, Youth Summit yesterday. I think that was a lovely idea, and I really hope that you will continue with that component in the years to come as well. So congratulations and thank you once again.
Thank you very much, madam, for your words of wisdom and motivation. I'm pretty sure her words of encouragement would guide us to strive so far ahead. We are now turning towards another remarkable personality who has graced this event with his presence. Senior Professor Kapila Senaviratna, Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies, is a senior professor in chemistry. He is also the chairman of Research Council, chairman of Ethics Review Committee, chairman of University Health and Safety Services, and director of Research and Consultation Center for Coconut Oil. In 1990, he completed his BSc Special at the University of California and then followed his PhD at Wayne State University, USA. He is a postdoctoral fellow at UBC Canada and became a Commonwealth Fellow at Leeds University, UK in 2010. He is also a Fulbright Fellow at the Massachusetts University, United States of America. He has received Vice Chancellor Awards for Best Inventor in the years of 2008, 9, 2012, 2020, and 2021. Esther and Stanley Kirshner Award, USA, for the Best Researcher in any branch of chemistry in 2009, and he has also won Sustred Awards by NSF for outstanding research achievements in 1996. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Senior Professor Kapila Senaviratna, Director, Research Council, University of California, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a real pleasure to be here. And it is also a pleasure to notice that we are back to normal. Our university is functioning really well now. And research conferences, seminars, students are here. It is a great feeling. Research-wise, we have observed, we experience many new things coming. We are qualified to apply for Times Higher Education ranking. More and more good quality research papers are coming from our university. We have maintained a very good research publication output over the last 5 years. And we have filed many patents, both national and international, and then this kind of conferences. And all these are enriching our research culture. It is a very good thing to notice. And, you know, from time to time, we have to improve our research quality, research standings, and we set our bars little higher and higher all the time. And we give a challenge to our academics. And if they can climb or jump over this, and that means the university is going to be benefited. And we should not try to, you know, fight to lower the bar or to creep under the bar, but jump over the bar and take the challenge. And I know this faculty has taken that challenge. We notice, Madam Vice Chancellor knows, we are getting more and more publications from this faculty. And also, we had this research-based PhD program. We discussed it yesterday. And our dean mentioned that this is to, again, improve the research culture and the publication output of this university. Now, this research conference, I think a research conference, we present papers and those can be considered as communications. Those are communications. And those are good ideas coming, and you do some preliminary work, you are excited, you publish them. And then those can be further developed, further research can be done to go for a full paper. And if at least 10 full papers or 10% of these conference abstracts made it to full papers, it is a great achievement. And I hope it will happen in future. And talking about climate change, as Madam Vice Chancellor mentioned, and it is good to have a good knowledge about climate changes. One thing is that we understand to what degree we should be alarmed at. Sometimes, I think few years back we heard, 10 years probably, due to global warming, the whole Kaduela area is going to be inundated. That is the huge newspaper articles, right? So we were all alarmed. And if there is a false alarm, what will happen next time? People don't care about it. So we want to know the facts. And then we understand how much we can be alarmed. So this is very important. And talking about this conference, and this is the 13th time this conference is organized. Organizing a conference of this nature 13 times is a big task. It's a huge task. And I congratulate our organizers for all the hard work. And I hope this conference will be a very fruitful one to all of us. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for your thoughts shared with us today, and your presence has added a lot of value to this ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, you are at the inauguration ceremony of Icbi 2022. We now come to the address by our keynote speaker, Professor Sean Kidney. Sean Kidney is CEO of the Climate Bonds Initiative, an international NGO working to mobilize global capital for climate action. Projects include a green bond definitions and certification scheme with $34 trillion of assets represented on its board. Working with the Chinese Central Bank on how to grow green bonds in China, market development programs in Brazil, Mexico, ASEAN, and Africa, and markets tracking services for the green bond industry. He is a member of the European Commission's platform on sustainable finance and was a member of its predecessors. The 2017 EU High-Level Expert Group on Sustainable Finance and the EU Technical Expert Group on Sustainable Finance. He is also a member of Green Finance Committees in China, India, Mexico, and Kazakhstan. Sean is also a professor in practice at SOAS University of London. Ladies and gentlemen, to address you, I have the real pleasure of handing over to Professor Sean Kidney, CEO, Climate Bonds Initiative, to deliver the keynote speech.
With such a colorful profile, I would say, I'm pretty sure you are very impatient to listen to our keynote speaker for the day. However, since we are running on a hybrid platform, we have experienced a little technical issue. These things are very common. So for the moment being, we will listen to our keynote speaker later on, and I would now like to introduce conference co-chair for today's event. Subona Barua, PhD, holds a blended experience of teaching courses in economics and finance at both local and foreign universities, delivering professional training on financial modeling, financial markets, financial management, and project management, and working in cross-border research projects funded by institutions such as the World Bank, UNDP, DFID, and Plan Bangladesh. He has a long track of serving in financial and management consultant and advisory roles at over 10 local and multinational corporations. Dr. Subona's publication portfolio includes books, book chapters, and over 30 articles published in high-impact factor journals. He has presented at more than 12 international conferences. Dr. Subona Barua is the managing editor of the Journal of Financial Markets and Governance and an academic editor of PLOS Climate. Now, I would like to invite the conference co-chair of ICBI 2022, Dr. Subona Barua from University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, to deliver the speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I must express my gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya for signing the MOU yesterday, once again. And dear dignitaries, delegates, and respected dean and the heads of departments, thank you very much for hosting us. I'm here on behalf of the University of Dhaka. As I said yesterday also, fortunately or unfortunately, we are having our 53rd convocation just tomorrow. So the whole university is busy with that, and the Vice Chancellor is very much appreciative of the fact that we are having this joint conference, and also that we signed an MOU with the University of Kelaniya. As we talk about business resilience for climate change, as part of my consulting activities, I also work for GIZ Bangladesh as a climate finance consultant. So we work with the climate related projects working in Bangladesh and how to generate international funding for those projects. And one feelings I can see globally at the moment, and also in the COP27 that's going on recently, everybody's talking about now climate finance. Actually, we already know the science of climate change. Everybody knows it. There's probably less new things that we need to know, but the most important thing right now is mobilizing the resources that we need. At this stage, one feelings I can see globally going on is how we can engage the private sector more. That's really a central feeling. Trust me, when I'm working for GIZ Bangladesh, our whole focus is on how we can engage the private sector, because countries like Sri Lanka or government, we do not have unlimited resources, public resources. The government, even if it wants, it cannot mobilize, let's say, billions of dollars of funds for climate-related projects. So this is a real problem we are facing. Bangladesh requires approximately $24 billion by 2030 to invest in the climate-related projects for adaptation and mitigation. But the rate of funding we are doing now by the government is far below what we need. So who will fund this gap? One of the players here is the international funders, but that actually increases the reliance of countries like us on the external parties that probably many of us don't want. So what we need is engaging the local private sector more in this process so that they can contribute to the climate change adaptation and mitigation activities of the nation. And this has to be felt just not as a business. I believe the businesses need to feel the responsibility that they need to engage. It's a public responsibility to engage because climate change is a real cause. And I feel from my passion that the way we are going now is probably not what we expected, definitely. So in terms of adaptation and mitigation, let me tell you once, I think I must cite one thing is the global funding that you see coming into countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka for climate-related activities are mostly going for mitigation activities. Because all you know, mitigation is business, right? When you take up, let's say, adopt energy efficient machinery, you buy from them. When you adopt renewable energy, you buy machineries from them, right? So the money eventually goes away. So it's an international mechanism. But now Bangladesh is raising voice in the international level, being the leader of the LDCs in the COP Conference of Parties. We are saying that we need less money for mitigation. Please don't show us mitigation anymore. Give us money for adaptation. So the private sector now has to be engaged not only with the mitigation, but also with the adaptation if we really want to fight and really slow down this climate change thing. And this is a real problem, and this is what the government of Bangladesh is now desperately trying to find a solution for. One problem with the adaptation activities is that the adaptation projects usually are localized and don't have the return feature attached, which discourages the private sector to come forward and invest in those. Now we need to go for, as our respected said, we need to go for massive level of innovation, product innovation and process innovation. How we can turn these mitigation and adaptation projects into attaching the, climate relevant return features, how we can transform these projects into such projects so that the private sectors will find some returns or find some, feedbacks for the investments that they are making. So we need a real investment in research for these innovation. And at this point of time, Dhaka University being the 100 years old university, we are celebrating the 100 years now this year. And University of Kalamia being one of the probably oldest universities in Sri Lanka, above 60 years of age, the responsibility goes on our shoulder. And that was one of the biggest motivation of our today's collaboration. Why we are on the theme of building business resilience. Now, this is one part where business must be engaged, but there is another part for businesses themselves also. Because I did my climate finance PhD, so I have studied a lot. We have been seeing that because of the climate change happening, many businesses are suffering from significant capital losses and losses of damaged properties. For example, if you talk about the tourism sector in Sri Lanka, if you see your climate is changing abruptly, you probably will see less arrival of tourists. And then your entire tourism sector could be devastated if this continues to go on. So the balance sheet of the tourism companies will basically dive down, right? So that's what we don't want. So there are several such sectors. Apart from the agriculture sector, our respected said, this tourism sector, and there are many other specific sectors that are extremely vulnerable to climate change, susceptible to climate change. So in order to save those businesses have to come forward and transform their business models. And one of the solutions we see today is the concept of circular economy. So I will not go longer on this, it's kind of becoming a lecture, but I believe it's our passion. That's why actually I'm bringing all these issues. And I think every person in this room has to feel this from the core of the heart. It's not something I'm reiterating from a book. It's something that I really feel and something that we are already facing in Bangladesh and in Sri Lanka. And I can see in my village how land areas are becoming uncultivable. And I don't want that anymore. So we need to go forward with a concerted effort. So with all this note, on behalf of the University of Dhaka, again, I must thank all the dignitaries, guests, paper presenters, and everyone joining here. And of course, the University of Kelaniya team, the fantastic team that has done a fantastic job yesterday. And today also, I hope it will be even better for organizing this conference in person and also in virtual mode together. Some of the participants are also joining online from Bangladesh as paper presenters. Apart from the University of Dhaka itself, in the broader level, I'm also representing the Department of International Business. It's one of the youngest department like this faculty. We established in 2008. We have 23 faculty members now, in my department now. Very brilliant, dynamic. Almost 80% of our faculties have PhDs. So they are very serious about their research and everything. So I hope this collaboration is just a beginning. In the coming days, we will have more impactful collaboration, collaborative research, training, and exchanges of teaching and student exchanges following the MOU. With that note, I must welcome you all to this conference as the co-chair of the conference. And thank you very much again for hosting us here in person. And also thank you very much for allowing Dhaka University to be a part of this gorgeous program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We are expecting Professor Sean Kidney to join us in a moment. Kindly bear with us for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, extremely sorry for the unexpected technical issue occurred, but the time has come to listen to the keynote speech of the day. So I would like to call again Professor Sean Kidney, CEO, Climate Bond Initiative, with immense privilege to address the gathering.
Thank you. Can you hear me first? Hello?
Indeed, so we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. I hope you can see the screen. I will display a PowerPoint if you can confirm that you can see me. I'm a little bit in the dark in Zoom, so to speak, in London.
Yes.
It's
we can see your screen, sir.
okay. Look, I was going to share the PowerPoint myself, but so be it. Yeah, thank you. Look, a couple of comments just to set the scene, if I may. I've just come back from the COP conference and just turn the PowerPoint off, please, for a moment, it's fine. I've come back from the COP conference in Sharm el-Sheikh just today. I'm currently in London, where it's a little bit colder than it is in Sri Lanka. It's very clear from the science in Sharm el-Sheikh that we have lost the fight against climate change. That there is no chance now to avert warming of 1.5 degrees and almost certainly 1.8 to 2 degrees. Our challenge now is to avoid catastrophic climate change. So when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Changes tells us we have to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030, understand that it's not to stop climate change. That time is past. And we've seen, in fact, in the last northern summer, significant climate change impacts beginning to be felt around the world. In Sichuan province, we've had droughts and heat incidences of people dying in the street from heat stroke while queuing up for a PCR test, let alone the collapse of power supply to Shanghai and Zhejiang province as a result of the drought. We've seen the floods in Pakistan, or the drought first, then the floods, the flash floods almost, which didn't go into the aquifer, which means we're going to have water supply problems again next year when the heat comes back. And even in Germany, where the Rhine is not flowing as well as it used to, and that's had a significant impact on the GDP because it's the main transport artery for the country, and other incidents. This is just the beginning. But if we don't get emissions down 50% in 7 years, 2030 is our current stretch target by the IPCC, we can sign ourselves to a very grim history. And I don't want to contemplate that, because I'm actually not sure that we'll have a reasonable future for the human species. We will definitely see large-scale loss of life and large-scale movements of people. And I'm afraid I'm nervous to think about what it might mean for Sri Lanka. So let's assume, which is a bit of a major assumption, that we get our act together and we reduce emissions to such an extent we avoid drastic runaway climate change, that we do roll out large-scale direct air capture and reforestation measures and soil sequestration measures in the next 10 years that allow us to start reducing the emissions profile of the atmosphere and stabilize climate at a 1.5 degree growth in temperatures, which is a bit like last year's climate impacts, doubled or tripled. That's a given. Now that means that we have to prepare. We have to prepare for a world which is going to be quite different to the world we've grown up in. That will mean not only the physical impact of climate change, and the climate scientists in Sri Lanka will be aware of the specific impacts we are expecting to see in different parts of the country, but also the social impacts, the economic and ecosystem impacts. The pandemic gave us a clue. Well, the pandemic is rooted in the collapse of biodiversity as a result of human activity in southern China and Southeast Asia, of bat colonies being pushed together and pathogens jumping between species. It's important to note that the IPCC Health Committee has been predicting pandemics for the last 30 years now as becoming a feature of climate change in the 21st century, as it has been in previous incidences of climate change. When we look back at the 1600s, in medieval times, or the post-Roman period of about 500 AD, as it's called in Europe anyway. We have seen a significant increase in pandemics when there are temperature fluctuations and greenhouse gas fluctuations in the atmosphere. In that pandemic, we experienced social shock, economic shocks, and of course, a major challenge in rebuilding our economies as a result of it, which has led to crisis in different parts of the world. Not the only reason we've had crisis, of course, but useful as a bit of a reminder of what we have to prepare for. Just taking pandemics, this particular one only had a 1% mortality rate. If it had been the SARS virus that had escaped, which was nipped in the bud at the time, it had a 20% mortality rate, and it mainly affected 30 to 40-year-olds. That would have been a very different world. So we can't assume this last pandemic, relatively benign as it's been, will be what we have to experience as time goes on. When we saw major climate change in the 1600s, 2 degrees cooling to be precise, which was we think now, according to research at Stanford University, induced by the collapse of populations in the Americas, thanks to the Spanish releasing measles and smallpox. 95% of Americans died in that 100-year period of 1500 to 1600, as far as we can add. So whole civilizations disappeared in the Amazon and other places. The forest regrowth was such that we cooled the planet by 2 degrees. The way we experienced climate change in the 1600s was as war, pandemic, and famine. We didn't experience it as changing sea levels, although in England, the Thames did freeze over, the Thames River, for the first time in recorded history, and other severe cold inflicted the northern hemispheres. And we saw drought, of course, and floods around the world during that period. We have to understand that what we're going into is a frightening change in how the world works and how we manage the world. Now, one of you is operating the PowerPoint slide. Can I ask you to put it on full screen and go to slide 2, please? The capital that we need to invest just on the mitigation side, according to McKinsey's in a study released in January, is some $9.2 trillion US per annum. There's a teensy bit of good news in that, in that 2/3 of that capital is a redirection of existing capital. For example, instead of building a freeway, build a railway. There's quite a lot to be done in that area. Water infrastructure needs to make sure it addresses both adaptation issues, so it works in 10 years' time rather than fails, and also energy efficiency issues. Water, for example, consumes 7% of the world's electricity. Energy efficiency measures count. There are a lot of investments in that basket, but there is a high capex penalty to the mitigation side. That is, to invest in solar, we need to spend more money up front than if we were building, say, a gas-fired power station, but a lot less money running it. Gas costs money. There is no such input involved in solar. A lot of the investments we have to make to ensure a clean green world are of a similar ilk. High capex, as it's called, low opex. On the resilience side, we have a similar issue. Whilst a lot of resilience investments are a matter of redirecting or changing the procurement guidelines for existing investments, again, take water infrastructure, there are a number of investments that are fresh, coastal protection measures that don't exist, raising the ports in Colombo, for example, so the waters are higher, so we don't get the same sort of flooding, all sorts of things along those lines. A similar capex penalty. We think that the capital investment required on the resilience side will be at least $5 trillion a year. This is way larger than anything that anyone is talking about in Sharm el-Sheikh, where they're still counting the cost of climate change in the billions. Madness. So understand that what we're going to have to invest, if we are to maintain our societies on some kind of stable footing, is very large. That's a challenge for us. Our capital resources, in some places, like in Sri Lanka, are not large enough for the task at hand. In some places like India, they are, but they're in the wrong place. They're invested in gold around the necks of Indians, for example, or in Japan in negative interest rate government bonds. We need to see a major global shift in capital allocation. The good news is, though, that we actually have the capital. If we look at capital stocks around the world, there is no doubt that we have done extraordinarily well in the last 70 years on a planetary basis with capital accumulation. We've created large saving pools, usually in the form of pension funds or insurance funds or even sovereign wealth funds, that amount to at least $130 trillion at any one time and continue to accumulate at a rapid rate. The inflows into those particular pools of capital, institutional investment capital, are substantial. Globally, our capital stocks are about $400 trillion US, but scattered in different kinds of assets, some illiquid. But the institutional investment sector, which has a fiduciary duty to balance long-term assets and liabilities, to look over the horizon, to think in 20 and 40-year horizons, is a very substantial now actor on the global economic scene. And that applies from Japan to China, to Europe, to the US, to Brazil, to India, and so on. Even in Zambia, where a large pension fund has been created by the government over time, and despite the gyrations of the Zambian national budget, thanks to governments changing, the pension fund is still there. The capital is available. There are things to be done to make it available for what needs to be invested, and we'll come to that. We have the capital, is the point. We simply need to redirect them. Next slide, please. One of the things that's happened in the last few years has been the development of a green and social bond market. This, if you like, is a proof of concept. It shows that if we do create investments that meet the needs of those institutional investors, they will invest. In fact, this is the fastest growing asset class on the planet now. Green bonds are some $2 trillion outstanding. And when we add all the other bonds together, we have a greater than $3 trillion US market. This is a pretty substantial market. The US economy, the world's largest economy by GDP, is some $17.5 trillion. Gives you a sense of scale. We are targeting a growth to $5 trillion per annum by 2025. Admittedly a stretch goal, but so are our climate targets. That's what we need to do to be able to make a contribution. Of course, the name is not important to the bond. What counts is capital being invested in the sorts of solutions that will allow us to head off calamity and catastrophe, to prepare our societies for the crises coming our way. But the key point is investors want to move. We have been very successful in the last 10 years of getting investors, the actuaries behind the long-term assets and liabilities matching work, to understand the long-term risks involved. They want to move. They have some challenges. Their portfolio management theories or methodologies are relatively short-term. So the thematic bond has been developed, packaged, if you like, investments in such a way that it meets their existing investment methodologies, whilst also addressing a long-term risk around climate issues and other sorts of issues. This idea of this allocation of proceeds or use of proceeds bond has been, and the simplicity of it, has been the secret of the success of this market. Of course, it leaves open some questions. How do we get things designed to meet their risk yield requirements while also addressing these other factors? But just know that the oversubscription rates for thematic bonds are some 2 to 4 times those of ordinary vanilla bonds from the same institution. And in liquid currencies, where the thematic bonds are liquid, we get price differentiation that ranges from 2 basis points for the German Bund, which is a negative interest rate, the green Bund, to something like 50 basis points for an Indian renewable energy developer. These are not rates that will change the planet, but they are substantive for the issuers of those bonds. They cut the cost of capital. On the back of that, we're now seeing a range of incentives being developed by international organizations. The Asian Development Bank will provide technical assistance to develop green bonds and will provide some credit enhancement as well. Multiple richer countries are now offering green bond credit enhancement, from US Treasury to plucky Denmark. It's becoming an easy thing for government to support. One of the things I've said to climate negotiators around the world, stamp to table about climate justice, but don't expect major dollars of money to be handed over, but do expect cheaper capital. Now, in the context of Sri Lanka's borrowing crisis and IMF risk, this is hard. But if we look forward to managed borrowings in a clear use of proceeds fashion, with reduced rates of capital because of pursuing climate incidents and the chance for credit enhancement or otherwise guarantees from richer countries for selective investment to address the climate crisis, there is a path forward here. And that'll apply, of course, to institutions, to banks, to organizations within Sri Lanka. Next slide, please. Just to give you a bit of a flavor. So far, it's mitigation focused. It's energy, transport, and property. Transport, railway lines, for example. Next slide, please. We've seen also the growth in the last few years of what's called a sustainability-linked bonds market. Everyone from corporations, municipalities to the government of Chile have issued bonds which are linked to targets. Think of these as forward-looking. The Chilean government linked it to renewable energy targets. If they fail to meet their targets, they will pay a coupon uplift, an extra 1% interest, let's say, on the bonds involved. Investors are attracted to these at the moment. There are some $400 billion of these, and it's growing very fast. We see the need for greater rigor, for frameworks to ensure confidence in the environmental outcomes that go with the credit outcomes, and that is happening at this very stage. But we'll see a growth of those kinds of issuances going forward. Next slide, please. To be able to qualify for the sustainable linked bond market, we clearly need to see Paris-aligned targets, robust plans, implementation action, and then, of course, a variety of reports back to market. At the Climate Bonds Initiative, for example, we have a certification scheme, which is providing from the end of this year certification for corporate and a little later government strategies, which are adequately ambitious in the context of our 2030 targets and the challenge of dealing with resilience going forward. I guess the key point I'm trying to make, and next slide, please, is that we have now the growth of appetite for investments that demonstrably address the risks involved in climate change. In fact, through creating these instruments, we've managed to turn the idea of investing in green from a cost to an opportunity. Everyone in the investment sector now believes that the world will change, is going to change. The Biden Climate Summit last year confirmed, when all the major developed economies of the world committed to 2030 targets, the view, the shape of the future has now been decided. Speed is the issue. Now, of course, as we know, speed is everything. If we don't meet our 2030 targets, we have a major problem, a very major problem going forward. However, when the destination is now clear, it means that people are changing their investment decisions with that in mind. They're looking for investments that are likely to be less risk of being negatively impacted by the changes going forward. That's the most important thing. So when they're looking for corporate, bank, or sovereign issuance, they're looking for clues that those entities are addressing the risks successfully rather than avoiding them. It makes them a lower default risk going forward. This has, of course, been amplified by what's happening with credit rating agencies. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch's, for example, have now incorporated in their credit rating, both at a corporate and a sovereign level, a wide range of climate risk impact metrics. That means, unfortunately, that emerging markets, the tropical countries, are being downgraded. Their cost of credit is going up. This will be a challenge as Sri Lanka engages again with the global investment community. But there is an antidote. And in our climate resilience project, we have a dialogue going with those three credit agencies about providing a framework for countries, a list of indicative investments that demonstrably reduce default risks because a country is beginning to address these issues of the sustainability in the context of the severe challenge of climate change. Now, what are these issues? They're not just physical. I mean, clearly, raising the walls of the height of those walls in Colombo is part of the change, let alone the changes to our water infrastructure. Pakistan had unfortunately failed to adequately invest in water infrastructure. It meant the flood impacts were far worse than they maybe could have been if preventative investments had been able to be made and more water had been captured to survive the next drought. That's an example. It's also social. When you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, what you're essentially looking at are predictors of reduced risk going forward. We know a range of things. We know, for example, that the provision of health welfare measures ensures that a country can better survive pandemics. We've had a big test case, if you like, laboratory research over the last 2.5 years of different measures around the world that led to different kinds of economic performance and recovery by different countries. We have to learn from that. We, of course, have to learn from the nature of international collaboration. The pandemic shows us that, if nothing else, to be able to support vulnerable countries when they change, when these kinds of impacts are felt. We know that the education of women is a prime predictor of participation in the economic life of society, which is also a predictor of resilience of an economy. If you like, the education of women, therefore, can also be seen not just as an SDG, a sustainable development goal, but as a climate resilience investment. These things will be part of the discussion in the lead up to the next COP in the United Arab Emirates next year. The key thing is developing a common understanding, a common language for what we need to be doing to ensure the sustainability of our societies. The Sri Lankan Central Bank has already adopted, we've had some input there, a taxonomy around mitigation measures. We now expect to see the addition in taxonomy work around the world that we're doing of chapters around resilience. Next slide, please. In the thematic market, we've seen the growth of a set of rules. We've seen principles and guidelines, taxonomy, standards, and of course, more recently, regulatory settings in China, in Europe, in Singapore, and in many other countries around the world. We've seen green bond standards, we've seen taxonomies, and we've seen a variety of other tools to allow investors to increase the confidence in the nature of investments going forward. Next slide, please. The taxonomy work that's been done by climate bonds initially, and then now by the Sri Lankan Central Bank, is broad. It's not just solar. It does include waste management systems, land use, transport, and property, for example. The shopping list for the future, the simple tool of making the confirmation of environmental credentials visible is a critical factor. Making it easy is a critical factor in this kind of change going forward. Next slide, please. We're going to see next further clarity on what to do. This is a precondition for taking the right kind of action going forward. It has been a source of confusion. In the mitigation side, is such and such an investment adequately ambitious? I can tell you that the IPCC has said very clear that any future investment in fossil fuel anywhere in the world is not consistent with achieving our climate goals. This is a big challenge for the gas-fired power industry and gas extraction. Sure, certain investments in developed countries will keep operating for a longer period than the rich world. The rich world has to close its coal and gas plants sooner, but new, nowhere. Of course, we've now got guidance in the steel industry, in the cement industry, in the chemicals industry, in the shipping industry coming through. Transition investments are areas where we can't change overnight, but we need to change with enough ambition to meet our targets. So let's think of these as moving goalposts. Resilience I've talked about. We're seeing a bit of clarity about what debt for nature swaps. This is something of particular interest in Sri Lanka, where existing debts are bought back or refinanced at a much lower rate of capital in return for biodiversity protection measures. We've seen a range of deals spring up in the past year, and we'll see a lot more in the coming year as we have a global crisis in debt repayments, thanks to the recession that the US has, the West is big to feel, and the actions that have been taken by reserve banks to manage inflation with complicated economic signals. Interest rates are going up, essentially. The second thing that we'll see more of is the preferencing of green, and by that I include resilience. Incentives from developed countries are now being to roll out regularly, essentially preferentially reducing the cost of capital. This is not donations or ODA. That I don't think is going to change in terms of quantum because of some of the fiscal crises that are being experienced by developed countries. But the reducing the cost of capital are measures that can be taken without necessarily a direct budget allocation. You will see a significant quote. There's a long story about that, including a story about the recalibration of development finance institutions. We've seen a range of multilateral development banks come out and now say they are or will soon move to 50% lending to mitigation solutions, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank's the latest, and that their other investments will be consistent with climate resilience. They'll need to have addressed resilience before they can be funded. This is a significant change in lending. Of course, we also need to see greater collaboration, and Sri Lanka's case really underlines this. That's not only in things like vaccines. Let's think of that as a climate crisis impact response mechanism, but also on support for countries who are suffering crises, such as when the Philippines experiences what will now become ever-increasing intensity of typhoons, to a range of other issues. The development of an international architecture of support, the growth, I should say, of the modest but important architecture that exists now is a key activity going forward. This should occupy the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Sri Lanka in a very substantial way going forward. Of course, green trade windows are beginning to be discussed and happening. We've seen the negative with Europe bringing in what's called the carbon border adjustment mechanism to disincentivize high carbon investments from China and India. The converse of that is opening windows for investments or for goods and activities that meet the climate shopping list that the European Commission or other countries have. Green trade windows. There's a lot to be done in a short amount of time. The capital needs are very large. Globally, the capital is available. We need to redirect it to the right place. To make that happen, we can't escape the fundamentals of capital management, governance, management that inspires confidence in an entity's ability to be able to repay a debt when we're looking at debt. These are basics. We all know the reasons why there are difficulties in repaying. It's way more complicated than just that. Some of those are built into the global economic architectural system, such as the ability of the US to print money whenever it needs to and suck money from other countries. There are certainly structural issues along those lines. They are what they are. But in the meantime, at least in debt markets, there is a very clear preference that has emerged for debt that addresses sustainability, that provides us one opportunity for addressing the challenges we face. That, if you like, is one of the grand projects of the current world architecture. Capital with purpose that helps us address our challenges. It's happening. It's not theoretical. It's not abstract. Of course, we now need to make it happen to benefit Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you agree with me when I say that was an insightful and knowledge-filled keynote speech. And I'm sure that our audience has had much value to take away from that speech. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for joining us as our keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have reached the end of the inauguration ceremony of the 13th International Conference on Business and Information. And I would like to call upon Conference Secretary ICBI 2022, Dr. Tishani Herath, to propose the vote of thanks.
Very good morning to all the respected invitees, presenters joining us online today. Gratitude is the attitude that takes to your attitude. I have the pleasant task of delivering vote of thanks to this gathering here today. A conference of this magnitude does not organize itself. The International Conference on Business and Information, ICBI 2022, which is taking place for the 13th consecutive year, is no exception. ICBI 2022 is the culmination of many committed hours and a great deal of effort on the part of the entire organizing committee with the help of all the supporting authorities. The simplest yet the most powerful way to show my gratitude when making the closure of yet another outstanding chapter for ICBI 2022 is to wholeheartedly thank the vast number of individuals who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event such a great success. First and foremost, I would like to convey my gratitude to ICBI 2022's chief guest, Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, for the immense support and the guidance she has provided. Madam, thank you for being a constant motivator and guiding force in all our endeavors to excel in the field of research. Next, I would like to express my utmost thanks to our guest of honor today, Dr. Narada Fernando, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, for your incredible support and particularly for the freedom provided to us, but taking all worries and responsibilities on the decisions and actions we made till today. It was indeed a great encouragement and motivation for us to conclude the ICBI 2022 of this magnitude. Thank you, sir. Also, I wholeheartedly express my sincere thanks to Head of the Departments, Professor Ruan Abesekara, Professor Dilrukshi Abewardena, Professor Ravi Disanayaka, Mr. MDP Piris for their tremendous support in a genuine effort to raise the standard of the entire conference. I'm grateful to our keynote speaker, Professor Sean Kidney, CEO of Climate Bond Initiatives, who accepted our invitation and took precise time out of his busy schedules to grace this occasion. Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable thoughts with us. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to Senior Professor Kapila Senaviratne, the Chairman of the University of Kelaniya's Research Council and the Dean of the FGS. Thank you, sir, for your guidance and support provided. Also, I must convey my humble and deep sense of appreciation for all the deans presented here today, all the professors and the teaching faculty of the FCMS, librarian and the registrar of the university for your support and for your participation. This humble thanks now goes to our international collaborating partner of ICBI 2022, University of Dhaka, for your immense support extended to us in various means. I must specially thank Associate Professor Suborna Barua, Conference Co-Chair, and Associate Professor Shabodip Nath for taking part of the event today. And I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our respected panelists of the technical forum today, Mr. Mohan Tantirige, Mr. Rishad Preena, Mr. Sanjeev Chulakumara, Ms. Lilanti Delgoda, and Mr. Randiva Malalasuriya for the moderator of the forum, Dr. Sugit Patabandige, for accepting our invitation, and hope it will be a fruitful session. We are waiting to join technical forum, which will be starting shortly. I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank all the session chairs, panel members of the doctoral colloquium and the main conference. I also wish to express my gratitude to the reviewers who have graciously donated a tremendous amount of time from their busy schedules to carefully read and evaluate the submissions. I'm also grateful to Ms. Achini Hettiarachi, Senior Assistant Registrar of the faculty, and her team for their fullest support given in making this event a success. I must recognize the contribution and the hard work committed by the conference team and the organizing committee of the ICBI 2022, knowing that they won't expect such an appreciation as we all work together in one team to make this event a success. But I officially thank to members of the advisory board, the chair of the conference, Dr. M.M. Shamil, conference co-chairs, Ms. Dr. Saroja and Dr. Suborna Barua, Editor-in-Chief, Dr. Kaushalya Yatigammana and her team, Dr. Surangi, Coordinator SDG Summit, Dr. Chaturaliyanage and Dr. Srinath Disanayaka, coordinators of the doctoral colloquium and the team, Dr. S.C. Tushara, coordinator of the 3MT competition, and assistant coordinators, Dr. Srinath and Dr. Chaturi Senarath and the team, Treasurer, Ms. Danushka Piananda, Mr. Harshika Hettiarachi, coordinator of the technical committee and his team, Mr. Viraj Lakmal, the coordinator of conference management system, Mr. Nisal Gunawardana, coordinator media and promotion and his team, and all the members of the organizing committee. The combined effort, this whole team have created a superbly synergistic result. Though I have not mentioned the names, but especially I thank everyone who have been involved throughout this entire journey. Without your cooperation and full support, this event would not have been possible. My special thanks goes to Mr. Dinuka and the team for the immense support extended to us to make this event with great success. I would also like to convey my thanks to the administrative, academic support, and non-academic staff who have helped in some ways. To all academic paper presenters, I sincerely thank you for your participation, and I wish you all the best for your presentations. I owe an apology to anybody who supported and helped us to organize this conference, but whom I may have forgotten to acknowledge here. If you know who you are, thank you. When organizing an event like this, human errors and mistakes are very much possible. Thus, we the conference team know that we make it at 95%, letting 5% to all mistakes happen from our end, though we didn't make them intentionally. We humbly admit them, so please accept our sincere apologies if anyone of you got hurt throughout this entire journey. Finally, I can't thank everyone enough for the involvement you have shown and the willingness you have expressed to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. I dearly hope that ICBI 2022 turns out to be both intellectually stimulating, professionally enriching, and that it creates and leaves you all with long-lasting memories. Thank you very much and have a fruitful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. And with that, we are moving towards the end of the opening ceremony today. We would kindly like to request all of our viewers to join us at 10:15 a.m. sharp for the technical forum using the same link. Technical sessions will start at 12:45 p.m. At the same time, we warmly invite you to go to G3 Hall to have your refreshments. And also make sure that you don't miss the virtual 3MT competition, which is scheduled at 4:45 p.m. this afternoon. And also make sure to join the closing ceremony sharp at 5:45 p.m. using the same link.
Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude the inauguration ceremony of ICBI 2022, please stand for the national anthem.
Thank you, and good luck to all of the presenters.